cozy. I love that you're all just chilling. So the last time I was supposed to be here, I was on assignment traveling in a camper van with my family to Yellowstone, so I decided to read about that. This is an excerpt from a book that I'm working on called 8 Feet on the Ground, and this one's called The Psychic's Prediction. Can you guys hear me? I don't need the microphone. When I was in high school, my dad moved out of our house for about 13 hours. Horribly traumatic for a privileged San Fernando Valley girl, I know. He came back with this written list of all these issues he had with my mother, brother, and I, starting with the order that we must thank him for putting food on our table, driving us to various baseball and cheerleading practices. It turned out my middle-aged father just wanted to be appreciated. For the night he was absent, he escaped to my cousin's house, his nephew, who lived with this supposedly gifted psychic. This psychic despised my mother and our traditional lifestyle, bashing her codependence and our familial unit repeatedly until my dad, flooded with false strength, lots of weed, and a touch of testosterone, opted for a night away from his cushy life, only to return a day later, desperate for our attention and with even less patience for our neediness. The night of his return, he exploded in a fit of rage about my constant barrage of friends, filtering in and out of our house, spending afternoons swimming in our pool, watching Days of Our Lives while munching on uncooked cup of noodles, and skateboarding on the quarter pipe my parents had constructed for my brother. When I told him, "That's just how life is, Dad, just get over it," he looked visibly shaken, then muttered the words that would haunt me for decades. "You know what the psychic," his name was John, "said about you, Missy? Your life is going to be nothing like this when you grow up. You know where you're going to live? In a trailer park." A trailer park. Me, I gasped. At the time, we lived in this 5-bedroom tract home in the northern part of LA's San Fernando Valley. My bedroom was a shrine to all things Michelle, with bookshelves stacked with Barbies and photos of my high school sweetheart decked out in his fancy button-down sweater or his baseball uniform, and an impressive collection of Sweet Valley High books. The wall-sized mural of a male model reflected in my wall of mirrors, creating the illusion of a room of admirers aimed at me, a chubby Jewish Valley Girl cheerleader, with her heart set on being a fashion designer to the stars or an actress. I would always have a house, a big one, complete with unlimited cable TV, period-stained sheets that magically got cleaned, and a closet full of personally designed Vans tennis shoes. "No way," I shouted. "Ew." My father laughed at me, a slightly cruel, slightly broken laugh, and said, "You'll see." Looking back now and seeing how much faith my father had in that psychic makes me wish I had a spiritual advisor now. How easy life would be with an unlimited withdrawal account of my destiny playing out in the cloud of some other person's head. If only there existed a magic 8-ball human who I could go ask the answers to all my existential worries and be assured that all will work out in the end. Because it turns out, Psychic John was right. Last summer, casualties of San Francisco's vomit-inducing housing costs, we were bouncing between vacation rentals in Santa Cruz, and stuck without a home, I took up residence in a camper van with my 2 kids and my very urban husband. Our home was exactly 17 by 7 feet. There was no place to escape farts, bad moods, annoying music, boredom, loud children. There was no space to secretly have sex when the boys went to bed. Forget having a room of my own. There was no place to read quietly, talk on the phone about how annoyed I am with my life. Right. And the one time I tried, I plugged my computer into an outdoor outlet at an Idaho campsite, and no joke, a bird pooped on my laptop. In the van, we were captive in each other's moods. 4 humans living the dream. Motoring from Santa Cruz through San Francisco, past the Nevada desert's brothels, across sleepy expanses of Idaho, all the way to Yellowstone National Park and back. There were many goals of this trip: to buy us time to find a place to live, to bond, to search for wolves, which was my older son's favorite animal at the time, to see slices of our country that we'd never encountered, and most importantly, to entertain the life of nomads, a life my husband and I had flirted with from our couch in San Francisco for decades. To get the whole story, you'll have to read the entire book and hear about the wild year leading up to our camper van adventure, how we left Santa Cruz and road schooled our kids and bounced between houses in LA and Santa Cruz and Hawaii a little bit and couch surfed in San Francisco, and then our trip itself. But I'll tell you this, by the time we circled back through Winnemucca, Nevada, when we were on the useless hunt for healthy food to feed our children, we had nearly hit a groove in our ability to coexist in such small quarters. We had spent hours engrossed in Winnie the Pooh audiobooks, sappy pop music, and I Spy games, license plate hunting, and quietly judging the way that other Americans lived. Now, however, our patience was growing thin. We were hungry, tired, and restless to stretch our legs. Of course, I didn't expect to find Gracias Madre or Slanted Door in Winnemucca, but I couldn't imagine feeding my kids crappy fast food. So I encouraged my husband Eddie to pull into the mini mart so that I could cook us a dinner in the parking lot. My husband was not pleased. You see, San Francisco had morphed a boy who used to survive on bacon sandwiches and In-N-Out into quite the food snob. I planned to make the kids seashell pasta. Somehow I was okay with this because the box read organic, and a farro, feta, and broccoli concoction for Eddie and I. When the boys piled out of the van, I fired up the kitchen. Our tricked-out minivan's trunk had 2 burners, a fridge, a sink, and a cutting board area. So far on this trip, I'd crafted meals in dozens of campsites, on the side of the road, and even through a hailstorm, while a red fox stood there and watched me ominously. So the parking lot of a mini mart wasn't that far of a stretch, but Eddie smirked. "You're really rocking the psychic's prediction right now, Michelle." I thought about the tonality of his accusation, his slight disgust, and then considered my mom's laugh when she called after I'd sent a photo of our camper van and her simple snort, "You?" How easily we all folded into the momentum of living on the road, how simple this life turned out to be, and how horrified my younger self would have been looking at the woman I became, a mom of boys with no Barbies in sight, a traveler, a teacher, a writer, someone who preferred to wander than have a home. A woman with 2 young children trailing behind her looked longingly at my disheveled hair and shirtless boys as my boy screamed, "I want a popsicle," and ran into the convenience store. My husband, the sweet spire in my family, followed them inside, likely hunting for a Snickers bar himself. The mother asked if we were traveling, and I said yes, we were living in a camper van exploring the West until we could find a place to call home. "Wow," she breathed, as one of her kids pulled the other's hair. "That sounds amazing." The hair puller yelled as his brother screeched and then retaliated with a big ball of spit. The mother ignored them, lost in a reverie of my ridiculous life. "To be unencumbered," she whispered, "to be free." Part of me wanted to show her the real cost of freedom. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches smeared on the seats, my kids' cracked out eyes from too much iPad watching on that day's drive, my younger son Nico's stinky-ass pea clothes piled under the front seat. Of course he insisted on not wearing diapers anymore the second we took to the road, just like he started walking the day before we boarded an airplane to Hawaii. Frankly, her reality and my reality were probably one and the same. Parenting at home is just as challenging as parenting on the road. The only difference is that if you're lucky, you have more space and more toys and most likely some version of childcare at home. When traveling, you have the world to entertain your kids and inspire rather than your stuff. I finally settled on explaining that I was encumbered. Then I definitely was not free. We just chose a different way than what was expected of us as a family because we needed to step into the unknown together and find a place we want to and can afford to live. Once we left our flat in San Francisco, we couldn't afford to go back to the city, a place that defined us for so many years. And my husband and I didn't want to settle like so many friends we know and end up in communities that we would not visit if we were traveling. And then be one of those people who swear they love living in the paradise of Danville or Aptos or Boise, just because that's where we landed. By this point, the hair puller had tackled his younger brother, and the mom took on the role of tired mother with no time to dream of a different life. "I'm taking you home and throwing you in the bath," she screamed, as if that were a threat, what I wouldn't give for a bath. When she disappeared into the store, my family reappeared, Nico's hands sticky from his dripping frozen treat, Kai's lips ringed with red sugar water. Eddie looked at the water boiling on the burners, wrapped his arms around my shoulders and said, "Ready to go home?" I poured the pasta into the water, taking in my young boys, who would not tolerate, let alone rejoice in this type of adventure when they grow older. Maybe the psychic's prediction wasn't an omen to be terrified of, but one to embrace. A life on the road is a gift. "I am home," I said, thinking maybe it was time to employ my own psychic. Thank you.
tell Bigley everything.